So 2 minutes, and we'll start. We're getting a decent few amount of people now.
So we're going to stop.
Yes. Yeah. There's only a few of these questions where there are going to be big answers.
Yeah.
A lot of these are sort of surface. The biggest
favorite.
So I'm gonna do the announcement in like a minute, and then just mute myself and leave it in your hands.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool. All right. I think we're ready to go basically. So I'll do that now.
Yep. Can you see both of us on the camera if you focus on us? Because the thing is, this isn't an accurate representation of what everybody else is seeing.
Yeah, I can see both of you.
You can see both of us like clearly, because from
Yeah.
our screen it looks like you can only see me, but I think that's just Discord sort of smushing
I
I'll
think
post a
that's cool, yeah.
screenshot in the Q&A
All right.
channel, so you can see.
Whenever
This is what I see.
you're ready to-
If you could move into frame and maybe a little bit closer as well, just so that the mic is like.
That's what I see,
Picks
Wes.
up.
If you look in the Q&A channel.
What'd you say? Cool. All right. So, are you ready to start then?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. So, just do your little intro, whatever. I'll mute myself. Do the announcement. Cool. All right, take it away.
All right. Welcome to the second jazz chord Q&A with legendary saxophone educator Don Zentz.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don Zentz. Glad to be with you today. Appreciate the opportunity to talk shop a little bit with everybody.
Yeah, everybody on here is a bunch of very talented musicians who would love to get your musical insight on a variety of topics.
Yes.
So this should be very insightful.
We're doing this in a school, so you might hear some bells,
Some low brass,
some low brass, a little bit of everything.
just a little bit of accompaniment to make it more interesting.
We're at the Douglas Anderson School of the Arts in Jacksonville.
Yes. Legendary saxophonist Bob Reynolds came out of, Theo Croker.
Jameson Ross.
Got to do a little bit of plugging, you know.
Yeah, Jameson Ross. Ulysses Owens.
True. Who? Other big names. We have more.
Alfonso Horn.
Alphon, there we go, yep.
Corey Wilcox.
Yeah, I think we've done plugging. Would you like to take it away?
Okay.
Yeah. So our first question is from one of our admins, Chloe. What made you want to be a high school educator instead of a soloist or a university professor?
Well, I actually taught at the college level for 13 years. I taught at the University of North Florida. Rich Madison hired me there. I taught at Florida Community College at Jacksonville. And then I taught at my alma mater, Valdosta State University. So of my 37 years, 13 of those years were at the college level. I enjoy teaching younger kids. I never really wanted to be like out on the road all the time, traveling the road and doing that kind of thing. I'm kind of a family guy. I wanted to have a family and a house, settle down, that kind of thing. That's how I was brought up. I was brought up in an Italian family where, you know, you had roots and you just kind of followed a traditional line of thought. But I knew that I always wanted to be able to play in addition to teach. And so I've been very blessed and extremely fortunate that it has worked out that way. I don't miss teaching at the college level much at all because, especially here at Douglas Anderson, where we have some of the most outstanding high school kids, in many ways it's easier to shape the kids. It's easier to rehearse the bands. Lots of times at the college level, you come across kids who might think they know everything already, and it's a little harder to get them to buy into ensemble playing versus it's all about them. So I'm very happy at the high school level. Plus, in my career, not only have I done the jazz thing, but I also enjoy the more traditional idioms as well, like wind symphony. I conduct the pit orchestra here, for example, classical saxophone. So kind of at the college level, you become much more pigeonholed into a certain genre and into a certain thing that you do day in and day out. But at the high school level, it's more of a cross section of things. And when you've been doing this a long time, that's very important. So it's not always just one steady diet of the same thing. And I think because of that, that's why I've been able to, to be on year 37 now and moving forward.
Thank you. Our next question is from one of our admins who's currently studying, I think, Penn State right now.
Okay.
On saxophone. It's, who are your biggest influences on saxophone and why?
So my biggest influence on saxophone, it has to be Dexter Gordon. I will never forget the first time that I bought a 67-cent cutout of this Dexter Gordon, who was holding a saxophone. So I said, well, let me check him out. And hearing that sound was the most captivating thing. It actually stunned me. And it was a 2-record set, and on the inside of it, there were pictures of him, so I thumbtacked it to the wall in my room, and it really became my inspiration. But when I heard that sound, I knew that that's what I wanted to sound like. The other thing was I could grasp and understand some of the things that he was doing. And I could transcribe some of the things that he was doing, and then I could incorporate it into my own playing. So sound and his way of improvisation, time feel, that kind of thing really influenced me tremendously.
All right. This is from one of our users named Evan. What's one of your favorite charts to play and why? I think he's talking about big band charts, because another one of the questions is your favorite standard.
Mm-hmm. Favorite big band. So in the traditional sense, I love anything by Basie. I am a big Basie fan. When I was a kid, my dad always had Frank Sinatra and Basie playing at the house. I didn't even know you could just buy Basie without Frank at the time. So, things that we're exposed to early on in life kind of stayed with us. So I was very, very drawn to that sound and all the things that were happening around Frank. Come to find out, it was the Count Basie Orchestra. The very first transcription I ever did was Eric Dixon's solo on Pennies from Heaven from the first album, I believe it was 1961, that Frank did with Basie. And so I remember, and my dad would play that all the time so loud that the single pane windows would vibrate in the house every Saturday and Sunday. And I remember being greatly influenced by that. So anything by Basie is really something. And I don't think it's by accident that we were able to do very well last year with the Basically Basie Festival with our top big band, because you hang out with the music long enough and you pay attention to the particulars, as Basie would say, you could really get things precise and really swinging. The way he unlayered the rhythm section, the All-American rhythm section, and how that concept has stayed with big bands these days, I don't think there was any more swinging band than the Basie band. Now, having said that, I don't think there's anything more beautiful than some of the things that Maria Schneider has written for a big band. But you're looking at two totally different kinds of concepts and approaches and almost idioms within the big band genre.
All right. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip a few of these. This is from one of our admins. I'm going to prioritize him. What was your best experience teaching and what was your worst?
Well, getting back to why I chosen the path of teaching, when I was in high school, I used to teach private lessons. And I found myself getting even more excited about the progress of my students than even about my own progress as a player. And so to this day, that's the way it is. Like Wes, I met you 4 years ago?
Yeah.
And Wes is being featured on Blood Count, Ellington's Strayhorn Johnny Hodges solo. And when I heard him playing that the other day in rehearsal, I'm thinking back 4 years and I'm going, man, I'm so proud of this kid. I get more excited about that kind of thing than even my own development on the saxophone. And it's always been like that. So, so when you say, what was my best teaching moment or teaching experience, I have to say that it is being able to see and work with students as they progress forward and really become really fine players. And you can see that potential in them, and being involved in the process of developing that potential with them is something that really drives me and gets me up every morning and gets me in that car, hour and a half driving to work. Every morning, that's how it is still to this day. That's a passion within me. Now, having said that, in the jazz area, in terms of being a jazz educator and a jazz band director, well, when I was teaching at the University of North Florida and we had the Count Basie band with us there, I believe the first time they came, they were with us for 2 weeks. That was pretty incredible, having that ghost band led by Frank Foster with us. 1996, right after Coming About and Evanescence came out, we had Maria Schneider with us, and we did a phenomenal concert with her, with most of the music that are on those 2 CDs. That was a tremendous experience. And I was so proud of those kids because we worked so hard with doubling, and we rented alto flutes, and we had the bass clarinet, and we had, all kinds of different perspectives and approaches to soloing on her music. That was really quite an event back in 1996. And you can see I'm getting all jazzed up talking about it. It was 25 years ago. And it's like it happened last week. So when that happens, that was a significant experience.
Yes. All right. Our next one, this is Chloe's second and third question. She's currently adminning this chat, so I'll give her a few more than everybody else. This is 2. What are your opinions on Anthony Braxton, and what do you feel about me naming my cat after you? Everybody knows about Dawn. She's the jazz chord mascot.
The cat. I think that's cool. I mean, it's an honor, to have students do that kind of thing. It's the little things like that really matter. It's certainly not the paycheck when you're a teacher, but it's the little things like that, the personal things that really make a difference, and it's the human touch. Anthony Braxton, I'm such a traditionalist, okay? but I know that Anthony Braxton, his music was like labeled creative music, right?
Yeah. Not
Not necessarily jazz. I think you have to acknowledge the fact that the man was quite a virtuoso on the saxophone. I mean, the things, the pyrotechniques and the multiphonics, and when you talk about playing the machine, what the man, can do on the saxophone was absolutely amazing. What was that album? It was just saxophone.
For alto.
For alto. That's some pretty amazing stuff that's on there. If you're a saxophone player, you have to really appreciate and respect what that is. And there's like sheets of sound that Coltrane got into toward the end of his life. It's pretty heavy. It's a lot to take in my opinion, especially if you're coming from a Dexter Gordon perspective. This is a little different, but in many ways, you talk about the advancement of the saxophone and showing what the saxophone can do, and talking about a skill level that really was phenomenal. I think that would be my response about Anthony Braxton, for sure.
Beautifully worded. This is an important one, I think, to every person at DA in particular. Can the new generation of jazz musicians make it in the current climate? And is an education or jazz education, is it a necessity to make it as a musician?
Well, I think you can make a living as a musician if you are well-rounded and diversified. Even Charlie Parker played weddings and bar mitzvahs, right? We got to remember that. If you are willing to commercially look at music and not just make your niche straight ahead jazz, I think you can. Okay. Some of the greatest jazz musicians we have made a great deal of their living as studio players in LA. in addition to playing in the jazz clubs and making jazz records and such. I think if you look at music as a whole like that, and you are at the top of your game, and your craft is at a level where you are the guy or gal, I think you can. But in terms of just playing jazz and, you know, living off of making jazz, I mean, what major label is still recording jazz? I mean, we don't have hardly any. Playing jazz festivals, I mean, we look at the jazz festivals today, and, you know, most of what we're hearing is smooth jazz or not even jazz. So about 3 or 4 years ago, I did the what was it, the OJs and the Temptation show here in Jacksonville. And they had just come from the night before from the Clearwater Jazz Festival, where they were the headline act. Now, the music of the OJs and the music of the Temptation, I mean, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. You know, but is it jazz?
Probably not.
No, it's not jazz. And they were the headline act for the Clearwater Jazz Festival. And so, unfortunately, with our culture out there, that things like that speak to making it difficult for a person to really be able to make a living at that solely. Now, again, if you're going to do pit orchestra work, if you're going to play commercial weddings, I mean, I make most of my money out there in the world today playing in a wedding band.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, when I was in college, I was playing 8 to 10 big band gigs a month. Now it's hard to come across big band gigs because nobody wants to pay for 18 players. It's a matter of economics. And a lot of the people that were demanding the big band music back in the day, they were of America's greatest generation. And unfortunately, they're not with us anymore, or they're not able to get out and about, or they can't afford ticket prices to come out and see what's going on. That would be my mom and dad, for example, who are on their mid to late 80s. So if you're willing to be diversified, yes, you can. Going the jazz education route for that, is it necessary that you do that? I don't think so, because nobody says, okay, in order to play this gig or to get hired, you have to have a BM in jazz education or jazz studies or something. So nobody checks those credentials. I mean, if you can play, you're in. You know, some of the greatest jazz artists that we've ever had, none of them studied jazz in an institutional kind of way. Yeah. I mean, they would practice all day, go in the clubs, check it out, practice the next day, try to figure out what they heard the night before, whatever they recorded on reel-to-reel tapes. That's what they were trying to lift and trying to copy. I read stuff about Sonny Stitt, how he would go in and listen to Coltrane and record it, and they would try to figure out what the heck he was doing. I mean, that was their education, but it wasn't in an institution per se, in a degree granting kind of situation. This whole notion of falling back on teaching, I don't think is a good one, because teaching is a very demanding thing. And if you are not really into it because you have a passion for helping people, and you are into other people's development rather than just your own, teaching is not something you just fall back. It's too hard just to fall back on. I mean, you have to love it, and you have to have a passion for it. You have to love working with kids, as I do. But I know a lot of people say, well, yeah, I'm going to get my degree in education, just in case the playing thing doesn't work out. I could fall back on this. I don't know about that. A lot of people that have tried that have found out that this teaching thing is really quite demanding. I mean, you got to sign in at 7 o'clock in the morning. You're working 60, 70-hour weeks. You have certification, professional development. There's a lot to it that I think a lot of people don't really fully grasp. You have to be able to recruit kids into a band program in order to have a program, because band is not something like English or math or science that the kids have to take. So you've got to have a personality. You've got to have a very charismatic personality in order to draw kids into the program and then retain them. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people that thought they were going to fall back on teaching or fall back on being a band director have found out that it really wasn't quite as easy as maybe some of the people in their lives made it look.
All right. I think I'll do a few more questions, and then at some point we can do some individual responses to some of these questions.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll work. I want everybody to get their question in. What's a good one? What do you think of Jacob Collier?
I don't,
Do you not know who he is?
I don't know who he is.
Oh, you're kidding.
No.
He has like,
Wow. Oh, what is that? The Saints are here.
that's jazz right there.
Yeah.
Jacob Collier is a very famous modern pianist. He's one of the ones who experienced a lot of microtonalisms. He does a lot of stuff, and he's broken out of the bounds of 12th tone harmony.
I see.
I'll send you some stuff of his, because even though I don't like him that much, his harmonic ideas are out of this world. They're so much more advanced than anything I'd ever seen before. I'll send you some. He does this one thing where it's like 40 per harmony, and then he modulates to D half sharp minor. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I think one of the questions that you shared with me earlier was pertaining to how do you keep improvisational ideas fresh
Yes.
and that kind of thing. And so what you just said kind of touches on that, because I think a lot of it has to do with perspective. I mean, I think Coltrane brought us all this new way of looking at things and playing on certain changes, because he had different perspectives, different insights of looking at the music, and came to the music through different doors theoretically. And so I think that's a way to do it. So if you're looking at an alter dominant chord, I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do with it. If you're only programmed to look at that alter dominant chord one way or two ways, then your ideas melodically are going to get stale. But if you start looking at it through different perspectives, I think that's how you keep your playing fresh. And certainly that's what Coltrane did.
Yes, I would totally agree with that.
And it sounds like that's what this fellow Collier has done. Looking at things differently and pushing and progressing.
To some of the most extreme levels I've ever seen, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not particularly out. It's just different. It's very hard to describe without hearing it. I think I'll do one from Kellos and from Mason. Do the one that Mason is. Okay, I think I'll make Mason.
Mason Hunt.
Yes.
Hi, Mason.
What do you think of the AACM, Chicago's free jazz movement, with Roscoe Mitchell, Richard Abrams, Henry Thedgill, Anthony Braxton?
What do I think of that?
Yeah.
Well, we touched a little bit on Anthony Braxton. I think it's a very important part of the music. But again, I'm such a traditionalist that I'm not necessarily into that.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what I would say about that.
Okay. At least you're not one of the people who thinks it's just awful and gobbledygook and
No. Again, like with Braxton, you have to respect with them. The playing of the saxophone is phenomenal.
Yep.
I mean, virtuosic actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't write it off. We just can't write something off because we don't like it.
Yes.
That's a problem that plagues society in general today.
Yes.
We don't ever just want to write something out because, I'm saying I'm a traditionalist, but that doesn't mean that I don't have an appreciation for that, or the fact that I respect that other people like it.
Yes.
Just because I don't necessarily care for it, or it's not in my wheelhouse, doesn't mean it's not valid and not good.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, if that was the perspective on things, art never would have moved forward for the last 400 years. So.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is from Mason. Advice for, do you have any advice for finding and connecting with mentors, generally or specifically for jazz and music education?
Well, the biggest place we find mentors today are when you go to school.
Yeah, true.
Teachers. I know I have three big mentors. The person that I student taught with at Valdosta High School, the late great Mr. Joe David. The person I studied with at Valdosta State, Mr. Bob Greenhall. And then the person that directed my high school all-state band when I was a junior in high school, and then hired me at UNF, Rich Madison. So I've met those three people through schools and through matriculating through college and doing all of that. So Mason is down there on the west coast of Florida. So I'm sure he's meeting professors. A lot of students choose where they go to school because they know those connections can be made.
Yeah.
Networking is very important in all of that. For so much of my networking, Mr. Bob Greenhow connected me with these people. Still today, those people hire me to do things, whether it be playing gigs or directing all state bands, but all of it is kind of centered around that connection that I made with him when I was going to school almost 40 years ago now. So the school place is big on that. Plus, you're seeing that person every day, every week, 3 times a week with big band rehearsal. You're in a car with that person driving the gigs. Bob Greenhaw and I drove all over the South playing gigs. He used to book the Hooked on Swing Larry Elgart band in the South. And we would drive from Atlanta to St. Petersburg to Miami to Charleston, all over the place playing gigs. And so what if I didn't have that kind of connection with him? What if I didn't go to school there with him? I never would have experienced that. I never would have had this network that I'm speaking.
Yeah. All right. We have, oh, he's not watching anymore. He left right before I was going to ask a question. That's really sad. What is your favorite and least favorite note? I don't know what he meant by this. I am not sure how to answer. I'm going to wonder if he meant like literal notes or if he meant against a chord. I think against a chord might be easier to answer.
I don't know how to answer. My least favorite note.
Yeah. Maybe your least favorite interval or something.
I'm not sure I have one. I've never thought of things that way. Yeah. I think one of the questions before, my favorite album?
Yeah, your favorite Blue Note album.
Favorite Blue Note album. That's even better. That would be that Dexter Gordon record set, that reissue.
Yeah.
I believe it was 1975. That was the first time I heard Dexter. And then I went backtracked and found those great albums that he did earlier in the early 60s. And then one of my students, Al Maniscalco, who works for Buffet, Kyle, was saxophone manager, he gave me that Blue Note CD collection set years ago now, when it first came out. That's some phenomenal stuff. And with the Basie recordings, we touched on it a little bit, but Basie straight ahead, I mean, you could hear all the parts. Stereophonic sound was just coming into play. They figured out how to mic a big band good in the studio. I'm very fond of Basie's album On the Road as well. It was on the Pablo label and it was red. I remember opening the jacket and the album was red, but I wore that thing because you could really hear the saxophone. that gritty, bassy, heavy, dense saxophone sound.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, I like this.
Yeah.
You know that Dexter always wanted to play in Lester Young's chair
I didn't know that.
in the Basie band. Yeah. And because Lester Young greatly influenced Dexter Gordon.
Yeah.
Not so much with sound, but in melodic approach.
Yes.
And so Dexter was always asking Basie if he could play on the band, and wanted to play Lester's chair, second tenor.
Yeah.
And Basie always said, "No, Dexter, you're too much of a star to play on my band," because Basie wanted ensemble players. And as a matter of fact, when a lot of players became stars, it was time for them to move on. He was looking for the folks that were into the team approach of things.
Yeah. Okay. I have one personal question. I already know the answer, but I think it would be a very funny story for these guys to hear. What was your experience with playing with Dizzy Gillespie like?
Well, I cannot share a lot of that.
You sure?
No,
You can share it
I
to Chad's history, but you can't share it with them.
No, line. But we had Dizzy was, it was an honor to be. Dizzy came to Jacksonville and played with the River City band, and I was fortunate enough to be on that band. And he pretty much stood right in front of me during the whole rehearsal.
Did he really?
But Dizzy, we were having some difficulty making Dizzy happy.
I see.
During his visit with us, and so there were some situations that I wish never would have come up, because I can't help but think about those things. But this was toward the end of his life, about a year and a half before he passed, and yeah, well, it was a wonderful concert and a fabulous opportunity to have done that. But I just wish some of the things that happened never would have happened.
Okay, how are we doing on time?
I'm not sure. We can keep going on for a couple minutes.
Okay. What do you think of the popularity of music YouTubers like Jacob Collier, Adam Neely? I know.
I don't know about all these YouTubers because I work 70 hours a week, and when I get home now, I fall asleep, Wes. So I go on YouTube, to pull up stuff and plan stuff for the jazz history class or to put on our Facebook page for the big band. But I don't know about the YouTubers and all of that.
I've posted a little bit of them. I posted Pat quite a few times because I love it. But I'll send you some of the other stuff because I'll send you some of the other stuff and I'll record what you think about it because I really do think it might be interesting to get your take on it. It's sort of jazz and applied in a more humorous setting to make it, I think, more welcoming to newcomers.
Okay.
Because I think one of the big issues with a lot of jazz, or something that people see as issues, is it's often sort of an unwelcoming environment to a lot of people. Like I know a lot of people on Jazz Corps, when they first join, they have issues. They have issues starting to talk because it seems like such a thing where the only people who really talk about it are experienced. And these YouTubers making it sort of humorous and making like they did this. Adam Neely, who's a fantastic bass player in New York City, he did this video dissecting the 6 levels of jazz harmony, where each one gets progressively more and more out. Mm-hmm. And he does stuff like he compares them to the spiciness of peppers, and it's really, and it makes it very welcoming to. Yeah, I use that analogy with my papers.
Yeah, something that everybody can understand. Yeah, because it's related to something everybody knows about.
And it's sort of humorous, which makes it very welcoming to everybody. I'd like to hear your perspective on that.
Well, we have to do something because we're at 1.5% of people out there listening to jazz. Classical music is at 2%. We're at 1.5% in jazz.
Did it ever get this bad?
So we've got to. It's gone from being the pop music of the day, from back in the day, to only 1.5%, and people thinking that the OJs are part of the jazz movement, headlining jazz festivals. So we'd certainly have to do something to bring more people into the fold. That's for sure. And that's what I enjoy doing in teaching the jazz history class. It's amazing to me how little Americans know about our music. And so education is always the key to bringing people around. The more we know about it, the more we're able to open up to it and take it in and support it, or appreciate it and respect it and communicate with it, just like people. Yeah. I mean, if I didn't know Kevin, I'd say, who is that guy over there? But so I think we need to do that through education. And so I really like teaching the jazz history. I always have, even when I taught at the college level. I used to teach it as a night class, and I would have majors from all over the school coming into that class because I had an opportunity to help them understand what they were listening to. Because if we understand it, then we're much more able to like it. Yeah. We don't like stuff we don't understand. Like, do you like geometry?
No, I hate it.
Because you don't fully understand it.
That's very true.
And that's case in point with things. That's just human nature.
Yes. This is one short. I think it's about time we wrap it up.
Okay.
It's been wonderful talking to you, Mr. Zentz. I hope you had fun contributing to our server.
I certainly have.
All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, Alfie, I'll let you wrap it up. We got to get to class.
All right, thanks very much for that, Wes. I really enjoyed that personally. I thought that was a really good Q&A. But yeah, that's about it. He's wrapped it up for me. So thank you, everyone, for coming. See you again soon, hopefully.